Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Charles from the channel Books on Stereo, and I'm here to bring you another In Conversation episode today. And I have one of my favorite booktubers, Rachel from Rachel Reads and Sings. Hi Rachel, how are you doing
Hi, I'm
today?
good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I can't complain. But today we're going to be talking about the positives and the negatives of BookTube, mostly from a creator standpoint. But I think definitely we can touch on a little bit on if you're just a viewer or just like kind of like a bystander within the book community as a whole. But before we get into any of our topic, before we get into any of the subtopics, these are our opinions and our opinions alone. We love BookTube, but it's also great to kind of reflect and kind of dispel a lot of the misconceptions that a lot of people may have about our community when you first initially join the book community at whole or at large. Yeah. For the first topic, or first thing I want to talk about, I always constantly hear this every single year for people who want to start a channel or people who want to get into the booktube or book Twitter or whatever platform you're thinking about in terms of the book community, that you have to buy a ton of books. So what do you think about that misconception? Because I always see that every time someone makes like a how to start a booktube channel, that's usually one of the disclaimers that they always note. They're like, hey, you don't have to buy all these books. So what do you kind of think about that?
I completely agree that you don't have to. The reason why I do buy a lot of books is just because it makes me happy. And like, I don't know. I mean, because you can totally just put a picture of a book in your video
Hmm.
when you're talking about it. Yeah, I think some people might feel pressure to have as many books as possible like displayed behind you like when you're making your videos or things like that, but you definitely don't have to. It's totally up to you. It's just like me personally, I just love to have my own library and that makes me happy. But if that's not doable for you, like that is totally fine. I
Hmm.
agree.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. Like the reason why that always a misconception always strikes me so hard because I flip flop a lot on my stance of like whether I should buy books or whether I should not buy books because I'm primarily an audiobook reader first and foremost. So
Right.
to me, it's like I really want to collect the audiobooks and less about collecting like the ebooks or the paperbacks or anything like that. But since I have stopped listening to audiobooks, I don't listen to audiobooks nearly as much as I used to.
Really?
I'm reading a lot more books that don't have audio. And
Gotcha.
I'm wondering, I'm facing the conundrum of like whether I should buy the book so I have something physical and pay like the 12.99 or whatever it costs, or should I just get like a four whatever the ebook costs and just have it sit on my Kindle in the graveyard where I'll never see it again. So I kind of get that. I 100% agree that you do not have to buy a ton of books to be a part of the booktube community. I think it's just one of the like the not to say nasty side effects of the book community because like if you're just going to the community you see everyone's YouTube videos, everyone has usually like a bookcase as a background because it makes sense. We're on booktube, and if you have a decent amount of following or you are into arcs or anything like that, you get a lot of books from publishers, you get a lot of books from indie authors as well, and so it can almost appear that you're like, oh, look at all these, like, look at my 20 plus book haul, whatever. I think those videos are fun to introduce you to new books, but I definitely can see why that misconception still lingers on, even though it's not true whatsoever. I think at
Hmm.
the end of the day, I don't necessarily care about the books you read. I care about your thoughts on the books that you read, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
And
what
it's
do you think
funny.
about that?
Yeah, it's funny that you bring up book hauls in particular because
Hmm.
I've noticed that, like, myself, both as a creator and a viewer, because I definitely watch BookTube as much as I make it,
Hmm.
I've realized that for some reason I don't like watching book hauls anymore and I don't like making them. Don't ask me why. I feel like my taste just changes, you know. Same with
Hmm.
the kinds of books that I read and stuff.
Hmm.
But it's just like I find that I used to be so excited about like sharing the books that I bought and watching other people's hauls, and now it's like I don't really care. Like, you know.
You do you. And I do feel like book hauls have really kind of been on a decline
Mm-hmm.
You definitely see more like ebook hauls or audiobook hauls kind of taking the place of like your traditional book hauls, especially since book outlet is not as big as it used to be back
Oh,
a
that's
couple of
true.
years ago. Like that would be like the thing. You like go on book outlet, you get like 50 books that are like 99 cents to $2, and then you have this huge book haul with books that you're probably never going to read, to be honest, but you have all the books. So that's all that matters. But even now, I don't see as many of those videos going up, even from like creators that I follow for a long time. You start seeing them less and less. You see like more like theme videos, like doing like anticipated reading, like anticipated like reads of whatever, or 5-star predictions that kind of taking the place of a book haul. But because I even see like
Yeah.
the pandemic has been hard on everyone, so I can definitely see like, especially with, if you have KU, if you're a romance reader, it's really a great substitute than buying all these books physically. And a lot of authors, especially the indie space, are not publishing paperbacks for
That's
some of
true.
their books. They're only digital copies only. So which I find is interesting as well. Because I know there's a paper shortage, but that is a whole other discussion. But yes, you do not need to buy a ton of books to be on Booktube. You just have to read and enjoy and talk about books that you love, and you will find your audience. That's 100%. Over the times that I feel like I care less, I care more about the personality of the booktuber than the actual books, because I'm like, realistically, I'm never probably gonna read in like the immediate future anything that like you would recommend, because I'm like my TBR is like already like crazy, and I don't have any. I don't have any rhyme or reason. I'm a mood reader without a mood. Like
Yeah,
I'm pure chaos.
I feel
But I
that.
watch your videos because I'm like, oh, I want to see what Rachel thinks about this book. I will read it vicariously through Rachel. I'll read it vicarious
Right.
through you.
I love that. Yeah, I found that I've become more of a mood reader in the last few months, whereas I used to be very diligent about this is what my TBR video was, so this is what I'm reading. And now I'm like, like, TBRs, whatever, who needs them?
Hey, I completely agree. I made my January TBR, and I swear, like a week, like 2 days later, I already changed the whole TBR. I was like, dang it. I was like, I was so sure that these were the books that I wanted to read. And then I go on Kindle Unlimited. I'm like, ooh, what is this book calling my name? Oh, a new release? Oh, a new audiobook? Okay, I guess I'm going to read that next.
Oh yeah, KU, it's so easy to just like go down a rabbit hole
I
and just
know it
throw out your
is.
TBR and just pick up something random, just something completely random.
I blame what would you call like my buying selling point words or whatever you would call it. Like if you say a book is steamy, I'm 100% going to go find that book and read it immediately.
We had
If you
like
say it was so
buzzwords.
steamy, I did that with one author. Her book got banned because of like it was too steamy. I was like, okay, I'm gonna read that book right now.
Yeah, that
Just
makes
like
total
out of nowhere.
sense.
I was like, I have to know what this book is. If it's so steamy that Amazon banned it, I was like, I need to know
Right.
for
Yeah.
research purposes.
For science.
But also, what do you think about like some of the more like, I don't know how to exactly phrase it, but there always is like an ongoing discussion on what counts as like you actually read the book. Like there's still some people in the booktube space, not the booktube space, but the book community at large, that kind of discount, especially audiobooks.
Hmm.
And they may say like, oh, you have to read like the physical paperback book for it to be a true reading experience. Like, what do you think about that kind of a misconception that definitely is not spreading throughout the booktube community, but it's definitely still prevalent.
It's interesting that you bring that up because I feel like that's one of the, I swear, like 5 discussions that is like constantly recycled, like especially on
Mm-hmm.
book Twitter. Like all of a sudden you'll see people subtweeting about like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
do audiobooks count as, and I'm just like, wait, we're still having these discussions. I've been a part of BookTube since 2018,
It
and
still
we're
happens.
still so my thoughts are that any format is valid, any format is reading. I actually, the way that I read is maybe a little bit unique because I actually like to listen to the audiobook while following along with either an ebook version or a physical version. I love taking the story in through two senses. It just feels like a really immersive experience. Sometimes it can feel like I'm reading a movie or
Hmm.
something like that. So I totally think that audiobooks, ebooks, what have you, and also like things like manga, graphic novels, it's all reading. It
Sure.
is, Yeah, I totally think it's all valid.
Yeah, because I didn't even talk about graphic novels or comic books as well, or manga as well. Like you said, those definitely get kind of like a bad rep, especially when you come around to like your end of the year reading goals. And like typically, if you read comic books or manga, you're probably going to be higher just because it's quicker media to get through. And I think a lot of some people in the community can think that like, oh, that's not actually reading because like half of it is pictures or whatever, or so on and so forth. But I 100% agree with you that any format that you consume the book, if you know what happens in the story, you read the book.
Yeah,
Either way
exactly.
you consume it, text to speech, I don't care, Alexa, Siri, whatever you may have it, as long as you can like say like if someone asks you what is the plot of this book, and you can tell them what happens in the book, you read the book. So
Yeah.
like the argument always baffles me. I feel like it boils down to those purist readers who are not used to different formats or haven't experienced them or had the best experiences with these formats. Because if you're not into audiobooks, I feel like there's always like one entry point for every person into a different format. You really just have to find that audiobook and then all of a sudden you love audiobooks. And that's a new format open to you. So I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that just like lack of experience with these other different formats. I could be wrong, but I definitely feel like that may be a contributing factor that you just have to just try it out. Try it out and see if you like it. Maybe you pick up a book on Kindle, pick up a novella, and see if you like reading on your e-reader or iPad or tablet or whatever. I just
Yeah.
think it makes you more flexible as a reader to be able to have all these different options so you can consume the story pretty much continuously and get through books a lot quicker.
Well, I think at the end of the day, this is something that we all do for fun, for our own enjoyment. And so this argument about like what is real reading, it's just all like gatekeeping and like, can we not? Can we
Mhm.
not do that? Like,
Mhm.
we're all just trying to have a good time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Let me enjoy my smut in peace.
Yeah,
I don't. I don't
exactly.
need. I don't need restrictions on how I consume it.
Right. Exactly.
But also, too, I feel like this is maybe a kind of like a recent kind of side effect of the book community that I just started to see. It was Ashley from Bookish Realm made
Mm,
a video, I think maybe a couple months ago, talking about this is more specifically for creators, not so much as viewers, but having trouble defining where booktube stops and your normal life begins, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
feel like the longer you're in the book community, you're going to soon want to like read arcs or like get advanced copies of new books that are going to be dropping soon, and you find yourself all of a sudden reading becomes a little bit more of an assignment. And if you want to talk about books or recommend books or do fun, cool like TBRs or fun, cool videos with a set of books, it kind of makes you have to read a lot more in like a positive and negative way. It's good that if you're reading what you love, it's great that you're reading more of it. But I can definitely see like just like if you do a lot of recommendation videos, at some point you're going to have to take a break and read 20 or 30 more books to have more books to talk about to recommend. So what do you kind of think about that balance
Yeah, that's
now that
that's
booktube is getting more popular?
that's very true. I can definitely see the pressure. Like, so I have NetGalley, as most of us do.
Mm-hmm.
And I have had to learn over the past couple of years, I need to like stop requesting so many e-arcs because I now like really understand my own reading in that I love reading backlist books. Like most of what I'm reading
Mhm.
is not 2021 releases, for instance.
Mhm.
Um, and so I have noticed that like when I do get approved for ARCs, I'm like momentarily excited, but then I'm like, oh wait, now I have this expectation,
You have to actually read
like
it.
to get it done before the book comes out. And like, and then also me being an audiobook listener a lot of the time, liking to take in the story through two mediums, then I'm
Mhm.
like, well, okay, I have this e-arc, but I also want to wait till the audiobook comes out. So like I have access to both. So yeah, that's a balance that I'm still kind of trying to find, is like trying not to make it an assignment, because then I'm not going to have as much fun.
Mhm.
And this has always been something that is just like a fun little side gig for me. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that you said. Like I'm lucky enough that I don't have to. Mostly for romances, I do have to request through NetGalley if I want like the advanced like reader copies. But somehow I'm like on a lot of like YA publisher lists, so I
Mhm.
usually get sent those arcs. So I'm like, I like having access to it, but I don't want to read you because I want the.
Yes.
But even
Yes.
though like I signed up for like Libro FM has their whole like influencer where you get a like you can select a number of free audiobooks every month. I haven't read any of them, but I keep on going, okay, it's free. Thank
I
you.
know. I know. Yeah.
I'm
That's
like,
still an
thank
issue with
you.
that, Allie. That, yeah, like, because I just get excited seeing that, like, oh, this is a book that I could get for free onto my Kindle. Like, So I'm gonna always request them. And then I have this like massive backlist on my NetGalley account, my shelf. I'm
Yeah.
just like, uh-oh, I'm not gonna get this done before they come out.
The only way someone can get me to read an arc is they have to go like, hey Charles, we need you to write a review. I'm like, okay, then I'll read. Then I'll go ahead if you expect me to like on this date you want my review. Then I'm like, okay, I'll go ahead and read. If I just requested them, like, or if it's tied to like a special event or something, where you're meeting the author or something like that, then I'm like, okay, then I'll read it. But other than that, I have like so many arcs on my NetGalley. I'm scared to like go through the
I
backlist.
know, I know. And it's
I'm like,
funny too.
why did I request this? And some of them I bought the audiobooks for after they
Right.
came out, and I'm like, I'm still not interested in reading.
I know. And it's funny too, because I used to get kind of jealous of bigger creators, like bigger booktubers that get sent like physical copies from all these different publishers of arcs and things like that. Um, but now I'm like, I'm cool with waiting until release day because I have a massive TBR of backlist books.
Mhm.
Like I can wait. As excited as I am about an upcoming release, it's like, okay, I can wait. I can be patient.
Or you can be like me, who like I was looking forward to the next Harley LaRue book. I was
Mhm.
telling everyone, "Oh my goodness, the next book is coming out." It drops. I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna buddy read it with Lacey." It's been 2 months and I haven't read it yet. And I was like the one person who like how much I love Harley LaRue, and I was just like, I read the sample and I was like, maybe next time. I
Yeah.
liked it. I think it was just a petty reason that I couldn't get it through KU because I already had like all my books checked out,
Oh yeah.
and I was just like, sorry, Her Soul to Revenge. Like you're gonna have to wait. And I
Oh
just never. After I cleared it out, I just never went back to it. I'm the worst. I
that
can hype up
happens
a
to
book and then
me
just
a
like never
lot.
read it.
That happens to me a lot. That I say I'm excited about a certain release, and then it comes out, and then why don't I immediately read it? I don't know. Like it happens all the time. It's just again now that I'm more of a moody reader too. It's like okay, well, I'm not necessarily in the mood for that right now. I'll read something
Yeah.
else.
And you also bring up a good point of focusing more on backlist titles. I feel like a lot of more like people in the book community are starting to focus, especially with book talk, and focusing a lot on like on back catalogs of authors. Because from what I understand about book talk, is like people if they see a book, they want to buy it immediately. They don't want something that like, oh, this comes out in like 4 months, pre-order it. Like they want that immediate satisfaction. I think a lot of times if you're so focused on new releases, which publishers want us to be, because like it makes them money and everything, it's good to promote some new releases, but you miss a lot of gems when
That's
you
true.
ignore the
Yeah.
backlist a little bit and try to focus a little bit too much on the new release side. So I think
Mhm.
that's also another misconception that I feel like you always have to talk about the popular and latest books.
I
Either
feel
you're a
like
content
that's
creator or a viewer
Yeah,
as
I feel like
well.
that's also like two different sides of it. Like, I feel like Book Talk is almost more focused on like these backlist books that Booktube has been talking about for years. And then there's a
Hmm.
pressure on Booktube as a creator, I feel like, to talk about the new releases, not just from publishers, but because that's what the viewers want to see. They want to see your thoughts on a
Hmm.
book that just came out yesterday, for instance, or something like that. I feel like, yeah, I feel like Book Talk is a lot of both creators and viewers that are like just now discovering these gems that like we may have known about for years. And then
Hmm.
Booktube, it's like the opposite. It's like, okay, well, what's the newest thing? What's the hottest
What's
thing?
coming up next? What are you going to talk about that we're going to have to put on our radars or something
Mhm.
like that? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely, that's a good point of always more from a creator's perspective, but feeling like you always have to find the latest and greatest or like the newest obsessions. Like you discovered brand Y, XYZ author, or you found this brand new book before it blows up or anything like that. So viewers are like, oh, Rachel and Charles have like the best recommendations. They like find these gems that no one knows about and then like they just take over the booktube space. And I feel like viewers want that more out of booktube, like you were kind of saying as well.
Oh yeah, that's true. And something I've realized about myself in the past few months as well is it's not that I'm putting a pressure on myself, but I do find myself looking more for like underrated gems. And so that I don't know, I can almost be the person that brought it to light. I don't know. It's not, I don't know. It's that maybe that sounds stupid, but like it's just like I love the idea
Mhm.
of like finding a book that only like let's say a couple hundred people have read on Goodreads, right? And then bringing it out to the open and then everybody not everybody, but then other people start reading it and they're like, oh, I really love this book too. And I love that. I love that. That's what one of the things about BookTube is like
Yeah.
introducing books that other people may not be talking about and then getting people excited about those books. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. That is a good point. I do like finding like a book that I love and like pushing it down everyone's throats. Like you must read this book like right now
Yes.
because I do like low key if I see a book that I recommended to people and I see it in their thumbnail, I'm like, let me fast forward to it. Let me see your thoughts about. Are you going to trash my favorite book? Let's see. Let's see. I'm ready in the comments. Like
Yeah.
I'm ready. Like I'm ready. I'm like, is Rachel gonna like her soul to take? I'm watching. I'm watching.
It's funny that you bring up Her Soul to Take because your video was the one that like finally pushed me. Because as much as people have been talking about that book, for instance, I was like, wait, Charles, the fact that you read it, there's no audiobook for it. The fact that you were like, I read this without the audiobook, that's how good this book was. So I was like, okay, wait a minute. Okay, adding to my KU.
And it's a thick boy. It's a thick book. It's not short. I
It's
don't know how I did it, but I just picked it up and I was like, ooh, okay. Okay, I like where you're going with this, Harley. I like
I
this.
know
I
it's like
like this.
500 pages.
I
I ended up
know.
having like Alexa read it to me while I was getting stuff done around the house.
Oh my goodness. And this is also a great point to bring up too. As a creator, do you feel any pressure to like um, create new types of videos or diversify your type of content, or you're more like I want to make what I want to make and send that out into the world? How do you feel about that? Do you feel like you get the metrics? Do you let the metrics get into your head about like okay, this video performed well, so I have to do videos like this, or you just produce what you want?
It's a little bit of both. It's interesting too because I've noticed that like in the past couple of months, I feel like it's hard to predict what people want to watch these days because I can tell you, um, I want to say like last year, maybe the early part of this year, like anytime I released a reading vlog, those videos bombed in terms of views.
Hmm.
Now, anytime I post a reading vlog, those get the most views out of any of my videos. So I've just like come to a decision of like, I'm just going to make what I want to make. and we'll see what does well and what doesn't. Because I don't know, it's hard to predict.
I don't predict anything. I just go like, you know what? I'm going to just make the videos that I want to make, and just go with the flow. Just go with the flow.
And
Just
you'll
go with the
have
flow
more
because
fun that way too. If you're just like doing what you want, don't obviously like, yes, it's hard not to focus on numbers and things like that, especially when you do eventually start like being monetized and stuff. And like, we want to make the most, as much money as
want to make
possible.
the moolah.
Right. But at the same time, you can't put that pressure on yourself, because then you're not going to have fun, and it's going to become too much of a job for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and definitely. And I think on the other side, on the flip side, if you want to make being in the book community your job, like there's ways that you can do that you can actually do like really well if you want to become. You can go like professional reviewer route. You can like help run social media if you build a successful like social media base that publishers would really like to get the word about books. So like there's a way to like if you want to kind of tunnel it more into like the job, making it more like a job, there's definitely ways to do that. But I think at the end of the day, like you said, especially if you're just doing it for fun or recreational purposes, do what you want, like do what you want to do, read what you want to read from a creator and a viewer standpoint as well. I
Exactly.
think that's when I enjoy creators or viewers who like give me recommendations on books. I'm like, I never would have thought about that book. Like, thank you for like bringing that to my attention or bringing a new author that I haven't heard of to the forefront and getting us to read books from this author. I think it's just discovering new favorite reads. I think that's why we all are part of the book community, even though it may have its like unintended side effects. But I feel like the more you get to know the community, the more you see those more and more dispelled. So you don't have to worry about any of these. Like you don't have to buy a ton of books. Read whatever format you want to read. Audiobooks are clearly the best format to experience your books. I will 100% stand by that because I do have to hunt down authors and be like, hey, I like your book, but where's the audio?
Right. That's fair.
Hey, I do for authors that I interview on my own channel. I'm like, thank you for sending me the arc, but is the audio art? Is this going to be on audio?
Right.
I'm like up in those DMs so quick, like going like, okay, this is gonna be on audio. Is it? Is it? Is it?
Yeah.
I'm just waiting. I read it, but now I want to go back and get the audio. But I'll get off my high horse, read whatever format you want to read. But any other thoughts that you have before I
I
wrap
would
us
just
up?
say, like, especially like the creator standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
especially just starting out, if you're someone that's just starting out, I would say, I know this is hard, but be patient in terms of your audience finding you, because we just talked about like making what you want to make, and it may take some time for the people that love what you make to find you. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it definitely took me a while to build what following I do have. And that can be hard, not to get like jealous of other people who like gain a ton of subscribers really fast. Like mine has been a very, very slow build of subscribers and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. You just kind of have to be patient and just like you said, go with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you're having fun, like that's what's up.
Yeah, because I do have to say, like, from a creator standpoint, it does take a lot more time than people actually think to plan out these videos, film, edit, read the books that are part of that video. If you're doing like a special TBR project, there's a lot of work that goes into those videos, whether from like a huge creator all the way down to the smallest creator. There still is a lot of love that gets put in the videos that we put on YouTube. So like you really do have to, even if you're just starting out, you really have to love the content that you're pushing out, or it's going to get really stale really, really fast, and you're going to be kind of burnt out. You're like, I don't want to do a TBR and a wrap up. Then find something that is more reflective of your reading style, and then you will find people that enjoy it. Like I give my hats up to Jen for the weekly wrap ups. Like I can barely remember the book that I read like 24 hours ago.
Yeah.
I'm like I don't even know the plot. Like
Yeah.
unless I really loved it, but most of the time I'm like I don't remember anything about the books I read. I read it and then it just goes into the dumpster.
And that's why I immediately do Goodreads reviews like right after finishing a book, because my brain, my brain does not keep track. Like,
I'm gonna expose myself a little bit. I never clean out my currently reading on Goodreads. So it may seem like I'm reading like a ridiculous amount of books at the same time, but they're finished. I just don't rate them. And then I forget. I have to give myself time so I don't do a petty review. So I don't give something a 2 when it's really a 3. I
right.
have to give it time to simmer, to really think about what I barely remember about the book.
That's fair. That's fair. And also with the type of content that you do, like I feel like you do more like author binges and things like
Hmm.
that. And then you do, so you're doing like smaller scale wrap ups more consistently, right? Versus like I do mid-month and end of the month. I
I
tried doing weekly for a
I
bit, but
appreciate
it's
you. I was like, Rachel, hats off to you because I cannot do that. Like I envy your skills. I don't even know like what time frame I read books in because I was just like, it goes on Goodreads is currently reading. I'll come back in a month and read it.
yeah. I know. I feel like you like, I don't know. I mean, I definitely really, really stay on top of my Goodreads and stuff because yeah, if I don't do a fairly detailed review immediately after finishing it, it's not going to happen. And then I'm going to be like, wait, what did I think about that book? I don't know. Unless it's
Yeah.
like a new all-time fave, then I do really remember the
Hmm.
reading experience and things like that. But like for 4-star books, for instance, I enjoyed them. I can tell you that I enjoyed them, but I have to go look back at my review to tell you like what I liked.
It's always worse like when you're a creator and you've written like 100 plus reviews on books and someone pulls up a review for a book that you reviewed and you're like, did I say that?
Oh yeah,
Like that was
those are
really
so
eloquent of me.
random. It's like a review from months ago, and I'm like, oh, okay.
I just like love when someone says like, I looked at the ratings for this book and I saw Charles's rating for the book and I was like, I can tell why he wouldn't like it. But thank you again, Rachel, so much for coming on my channel. It has been a pleasure having you. If you guys want to go follow Rachel on all her social medias, they'll be all linked down in the description box down below. So just go click, 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 click. You're on YouTube, Twitter, Goodreads, Instagram.
Yep.
Are you on TikTok too?
Nope.
Okay. I just had to ask. I just had to ask.
No, I
And do you
appreciate you asking, but
and do
yeah,
you have any singing content as well? Because your channel name is Rachel Reads and Sings.
my singing content, like my Instagram is half Bookstagram, half my personal life, which is singing. So you get both. You get
Okay.
both of that content on my Instagram.
Okay, that's good. So you guys will love Rachel's videos. If you love historical romance, she's got you covered. Any type of romance, Rachel has you covered. If you want your smutty, like no plot reads, I'm your person to hit up. Like that's my bread and butter. You tell me a book is like 100% smut and no plot. I'm like, give it to me. I will read it this instant.
I love it.
But thank you guys again so much for watching this video. I'll catch you guys with another brand new video. Bye everyone.
Bye.